everyone, welcome back to the class of macroeconomics. In today's class, we want to talk more about money. So to begin with, the topics that we are going to address today are as follows. We want to talk about how to describe money demand and what are the money demand response to various economic factors. And then we want to talk about, is there any theory about the determinants of the money quantity? And then we want to move on to talk about the composite of wealth and then what are the concepts of return in general. Therefore, the outline for today is as follows. We want to first talk about the money demand function, and then we are going to talk about the elasticity of money demand, and then we are going to talk about the quantity theory of money, and then we are going to talk about asset market, and then the concept of nominal interest rate and real interest rate. Okay, so to begin with, we want to talk about the money demand function, which are equations describe the quantity of money demanded. So what we want to do is that we want to review what we talked about last time about the factor affecting the money demand. It can be either from the micro perspective or from the macro perspective. So from the micro perspective, the return, the risk, and liquidity for the monetary assets and the non-monetary assets will all affect the money demand. In addition to those, the wealth and real income of individuals will also affect the money demand. That is because when someone is rich or they have high income, they probably want to enjoy higher or better quality of life. In that case, when the income is high, people probably want to have a cup of coffee at Starbucks. So then the quantity of money they need to hold in their pockets should be more than the people that only want to have a cup of coffee from 7-Eleven. Therefore, when the wealth and real income is high, then the demand for money will be higher. So then, in addition to the micro perspective, given that this is a macro class, of course we talk about the money demand from the macro perspective. The factor that will affect the money demand includes the price level of a nation, the interest of the non-monetary assets, and also the real income of a nation. When the price level is high, the real demand and the nominal demand for money should be higher. When the interest of the non-monetary assets is higher, then the demand for money should decrease because the return on the alternative asset is now higher, so people want to hold less money. Finally, when the real income of the nation is high, the demand for money in general will be higher, but it is not necessarily proportional, and we will talk about that in detail later. Okay, so now we want to start to talk about the equation that describing the money demand. So to begin with, we want to show the simple version of the money demand function, which only consider the price level and the income. So then in here, the MD is the money demand in nominal terms. The P is the price level, the K is the percentage of income people want to hold as money, and Y is the income. Therefore, this equation tells us the real money demand, which is MD over P, equals a portion of the income that people have. So this equation is simple, but it captures the important factor affecting the money demand, which is the price level and the income. We also have the generalized version of the money demand function, which is the nominal money demand equal to the price multiplied by a liquidity function. For this liquidity function, the Y is the income, the I is the return of the non-monetary assets. So then when we rearrange the equation, what we are going to get is the real money demand equal to a liquidity function, which is when the Y is higher, the real money demand is higher. When the return on the non-monetary asset is higher, then the demand for money in real terms should be less. So this is another version of the money demand function. So these two equations are the equations that describing the money demand. So then what we are going to do next is that we want to talk about the elasticity of money demand, and we want to focus on the macro perspective. So then to begin with, we want to define what is elasticity. So elasticity is the percentage change in money demand that caused by 1% increase in a factor. For example, it can be income, it can be price, and it can be the interest of the non-monetary assets. So then what we want to do is that we want to talk about the income elasticity of money demand. We also want to talk about the price elasticity of money demand. And then we are going to talk about the interest elasticity of money demand. So what is the income elasticity of money demand? It is about how does the money demand respond to 1% change in the income. This elasticity turned out to be positive, but it is less than 1. Goldfish show that the number is about 2/3. And it is quite straightforward, as we mentioned earlier. When the income is higher, people want to have a better quality of life. Therefore, people have the tendency to hold more money in the pockets, and then they are going to have higher demand for money. However, for people that is rich, they can use credit card, ATM card. Therefore, they can use some non-monetary assets to conduct the transaction. Therefore, they do not have to hold that many money in their pockets. Therefore, even though the income elasticity of money is positive and it is less than 1, and the value is roughly equal to 2/3. The next elasticity we want to talk about is the price elasticity of money demand. And for this value, it is proportional and roughly equal 1. That is because when you are in Japan, when you want to buy a cup of coffee, then you need to hold the quantity of money that can allow you to buy a cup of coffee in Japanese yen. When you are in US, when you want to buy a cup of coffee, you need to hold the money in your pocket for buying a cup of coffee in US dollar. Therefore, the demand for money based on the price is roughly equal 1. And here I want to emphasize that the price elasticity of money demand we are talking about is related to the nominal money demand. Finally, we want to talk about the interest elasticity of money demand. And in here we are talking about the real demand for money. So for this number, it is negative. That is because the interest we are talking about is the interest of the non-monetary assets, given that the interest of the non-monetary assets is the return of the alternatives. Therefore, when the interest is higher, the real demand for money should be less. Therefore, this number is negative, but it is a very small number. In research that people find out, it is roughly equal -0.1 to -0.2.